I don't know how I could set this up so that I could have both the screen and me.
Do you need the screen and you?
Somebody recommended that.
If no one shows up, maybe putting it back here. Like if no one can always put it here.
Well, the idea was that the videos are terrible, right? And you know that it would be better if there was like closer to me, so you could hear better.
Maybe
But also that you could have the screen in,
yeah.
so you can see what's going on.
Like on your computer, then in front of it. But that might be too close to the screen.
Actually, that's my vote. It's like the easiest thing in the world. And you just, you know, have a real nice photo on there, whatever you're gonna take out.
I could get the screen this way.
Information, you can lose 10 people. Oh man, that's really great. All right,
Yeah,
well, maybe here we
so,
go.
like, in 2 years from now, when I forget about it, I'll buy all this stuff.
Alright, I'm trying to get a website up, so I don't even have a name for anything. I'm just building up, you know, stock photos, I guess.
In the industry, they call it building a platform.
Yeah. Yeah, this is
Something-
one I also took.
Oh,
Just started
nice.
working with black and white photos.
One of my friends mentioned last night that when you submit an obituary, it has to be loaded up on legacy.com, some kind of website,
Really?
and they charge you. So it's like $7,000 for one.
Dying's expensive, I guess.
Dining is
What?
expensive.
I
It's
was like,
ridiculous.
well, wait a minute.
Just
I
not
thought,
seem
I
right.
thought, you know, if you know someone died, you could just send in a small obituary to the paper, and I thought
That's why I thought.
they would publish it, but
I mean, is the-
apparently, if it goes into the paper, it so if you click onto it, it automatically goes somewhere. Let me see if I can. And we can go to the obituaries. Right? That wouldn't be Alaska Life. That would be Alaska Death. Right? Obituaries.
Oh, it was on the little header there.
Marijuana news. I love how it's a
It was up there.
Yeah, it's there on the right again. Yeah. Down.
Oh, there. So.
Mine can't sneeze.
Yeah, see? It did. It went to legacy.com. So we're on a website, and apparently you have to pay them.
Is that just the English Daily News though?
Well, I think it's probably every paper uses it.
I don't know.
For next week, are we just meeting on Tuesday?
Yes,
Is it?
I believe that's correct.
Okay.
They because what happens if you've not done it before, the classes that meet for 2 sessions during the week will combine those 2 sessions into one session, either the first or the second meeting,
Yeah.
depending on
Tuesday.
the schedule. Sometimes it causes conflict, so I don't have any requirements for that last meeting, so if you have a conflict, you are welcome to come or not. I will be here. That's the only real requirement, that I show up and spend the meeting time, you know, fulfill it, you know, because otherwise
Oh wait.
but yeah, Phil's usually been pretty good at making sure I earn my money, right? So he makes me come. But I will come anyway.
No, I called around about it though.
Did you read?
Did you really?
Yeah.
But so
People-
we have.
Mike's Quality Meats thought I was crazy.
Yeah, that's where Nico works.
I know
Nico's
that guy.
dad is the one who owns it.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Wait.
Yeah, that's why when he was over here, he was talking about it. I was, of
What's his
course you
last,
would
what's his
know.
last name?
Ganulis?
Yeah, I know Peter.
Yeah.
And
Philip,
Philip,
yeah.
I was in a geometry class
Oh,
freshman
really?
year.
Wait, his father owns.
His dad's the owner. His dad is Mike.
Yeah, he had such a dumb argument yesterday.
What was it?
Yesterday, you mean last class? Or,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
last class.
you mean about?
It made I don't know.
What was
I grew up with horses and training them, and I don't know, so like I see the purpose in them, and he was just like, well, why don't we eat horses? I'm like, well, we do, dummy. Like, it's not in the USA.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm like, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm like, we eat dogs. we don't have a purpose. I'm like, well, horses have a purpose. He doesn't really know.
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
I like hot dogs.
Yeah.
Wurst.
Yeah, well, like a kindergartner I'm like,
But so the
I'm like, yeah, there is a gender, there's not.
but so our last class, I'll bring movies if any, because we have like a double session, so we can watch a movie. If you'd rather watch a movie that you have, you can bring one, and we basically whoever shows up can vote. You can bring food if you want to make it like a party, although we have to be neat.
I'll bring the chips
But we could also end up talking about philosophical issues, which is like, why we're here, if you have any that you would wish to discuss.
I'll probably be here. I mean, I've got a sitter. I take that opportunity every chance I get, you know.
So that's the plan. I will be here. You do not have to come, but you are welcome to, of course. You're encouraged to, actually. So we meet from 10:10 to 12:55. It's a double session, and only on Tuesday. And I say we will watch and discuss a movie, which I've got tons of interesting movies. Some of you, as we've gone through, have mentioned significant movies that you haven't seen. So those are interesting to show. A great one is like 2001: A Space Odyssey. A lot of folks haven't seen that. I have the Monty Python: The Meaning of Life.
Whenever someone says that they haven't seen that, I get like, I feel personally victimized.
They released a new
Because
Jurassic
it's so
Park
good
trailer
and it's
today.
so iconic. And
So
just the
excited to
song.
watch it.
Monty Python? Yeah.
Of The Meaning of Life.
Yeah.
They should make a sequel.
We should-
Oh,
Because like they have
that'd
a
be
song
hilarious.
about how you like, it's just.
The universe is expanding.
Just trying to think like what movies I have at home that I would bring in and want to watch, and like how I can like justify each one.
Yes. So it's very, I don't want to say raunchy, but raunchy.
Okay.
There's no like physical things that happen. It's all verbal. It's just,
The Monty Python?
yeah.
Well, the one guy that dies because he made a television joke, you know, of sex, and,
Yeah.
and his death is actually that joke,
Yep.
you know, where he's being chased off a cliff by a bunch of women that they're wearing helmets but nothing else.
Well, what is it? Is it the, like, they give the kids up for adoption or something because they have too many kids?
Oh,
It's like the very beginning of the movie.
yeah. He sells them all for
Yes.
scientific experiments.
Because he doesn't want to buy condoms.
The church would see through such a feeble gesture. So it's scientific experiments for the lot of you. Oh. Every sperm is sacred.
Was the little girl like, why don't you get neutered or something like that? And he's like, all right.
Could you have your balls cut off? The church would see through a cheap trick like that. Yes. So I have that one. I have quite a. I've got Life of Brian. I've got the Quest for the Holy Grail, and I believe most of the crew in the Monty Python were philosophy majors, so that explains an awful lot, I think. But I remember when those movies first came out, I was absolutely horrified, and I couldn't have imagined watching them with like other people, you know, like my parents, for example, knowing that we were. I mean, it was horrible. Now, I have those movies, and if I play them for my kids, they go, you know, it's boring. You know, like how could such a shift take place?
Well, if that's what it's been during this generation, imagine what it'll be like for our generation.
Oh yeah. That's it's not that there's any shock value in it. It's like still the questions that they pose are interesting. So it's philosophically interesting. puzzle. But I also have more contemporary ones like Ex Machina or Machina. Not sure how you pronounce it, one way or the other. I've heard both. What else? Interstellar, I think.
That's a good one.
I have that one.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's puzzling. But today I highlighted David Foster Wallace, and the short little video there is "What is Water," which if you had a chance, it's short. It's like about a 10-minute speech he gave as a graduation speech at a liberal arts college.
I think me paying attention to you ruined it for me, because immediately I was like, oh, this is a dude who killed himself. So like everything he said, I was like, this guy.
Yeah, well, he made the speech before he killed himself.
I assume so, but I'm just like, what a hypocrite. You know, like do the whole thing, you know.
Well, that's the thing. He's not being a hypocrite, and yet at the same time, he can't practice what he preaches.
Yeah.
Which
For
that's slightly different. I mean,
I
you know,
guess
like
so.
Al Franken, on the other hand, that could be hypocritical, I think.
Matt Lauer.
I don't know. You know, I don't know some of these. You know, on the other hand, Maestro Levine, I'm thinking, yeah, well, what else is a conductor going to do with his spare time? Sorry, that's
With
you're
Matt
in music.
Lauer, there's one
That's terrible.
incident that like it was like stuff found in his office. So then I was questioning why was that person searching the office in the first place, because she found them. I was like, well, what were you doing in the office by yourself looking for something?
So Fox News had an article that was from a roast of Matt Lauer. I don't know if it was his birthday or whatever. It was from 2008. Oh my God! First off, the people that were there was like, I mean, Trump was there, for example. I mean, there was just some of the biggest names in the industry, and the raunchiest shit.
There's a roast of Donald Trump too.
Oh yeah.
Before he was even
Yeah,
close
yeah,
to,
yeah.
you know, running for president.
But I mean, like the jokes they made, like everybody knew.
Well, I heard that what the Russians have on him, so to speak, is that the visit he made right after the press dinner, where President Obama really rode him hard, made several jokes at him. That seems to be the point where he decided to really run for president. He's going to get even with this guy.
He's like, no.
and so his trip to Moscow after that happened, and he found out the hotel he was in had the room where Obama had stayed when he was there, and so he basically, from what I understand, he paid the 3 call girls he had to go pee on Obama's bed. The bed that Obama slept in. That's, from what I understand, is so all the odd versions about having the girls pee on one thing or the, so, yep.
That's really how you have to end it. Like, yeah, like you have to end it that way. There is no logical way to end a conversation that starts out with Trump hired people to pee on a bed that didn't actually belong to anyone. It was at hotels. It's not even like.
No, and so it makes more sense now when he complains that he couldn't unpardon the turkeys that Obama had pardoned the year before. I don't know. Actually, I think subsequent presidents have hated one another before. Of course, Aaron Burr shot Hamilton because of how Hamilton kept Burr from being elected president, apparently, among other things. But so there are people, and heck, Andrew Jackson, as he was walking around, literally rattled, they say, from all the gunshot in his body that, never came out.
Depending on, there's a little thing I saw on this, and depending on different newspapers and what you believe, he had anywhere from 12 to 124 duels while he was the president.
This is so awesome. We're going to go watch the presidential duel today. I can just imagine that. That'd be so
Well,
Like,
you
he had
know,
more
That's
it's,
how
it's
he
like,
turned your president, whoever
Anything
wins.
outside of his presidency? he
what's,
had some,
what's
like,
his
5
schedule
years.
for today?
Yeah.
Death,
Right.
death, 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 lunch, death, death.
Hey, I'm just saying, if
Tea.
you could do that today, imagine how much simpler our politics would be. You know, two people disagree, okay, let's have a duel, whoever wins obviously is right.
On his
Okay, but I really
deathbed,
feel like we're getting into Hunger Games territory there.
It works!
on his deathbed, he had 2 regrets, and it was pardoning one guy and not killing another guy. So, like, you know, in a life filled with all that death, he just regretted he didn't kill some more.
Okay, so did you all listen to What is Water? Hopefully,
Yeah.
sad, because I think he's right.
Needs a damn Happy Meal is what he needs.
Well, he's talking about your own ability to have control over your own thought processes so that you are in charge of whether you're happy or sad. And I meet lots of even highly educated people that are furious with the world, sad, depressed, and everything, and I'm thinking to myself, gee, they didn't get the right they missed a few of the important courses where you learn how not to be upset by what's going on, because you can be in charge of your own feelings.
So, this actually
And
relates.
that will help you, because if you're angry, it's bad for your body. But if
So-
you're happy about,
Yeah. So this related back to me, actually pretty personally. 'Cause back when I was in the service and I was doing my EOD stuff, my brother asked me very specifically, he said, my brother's a mechanic.
Did you apply for the young adult?
My brother's a mechanic, and he was having all kinds of anxiety issues. So he's like, how do you do what you do? And I said, well, you got to be smart enough, obviously, to do what I do without getting yourself killed. But you also have to be dumb enough to be able to turn that off when you need to, and just be like, oh yeah, I can do something about all of this, but this here, this will still kill me. So just ignore that and go down there and operate. So it's kind of like that.
well,
Like,
you're doing that when you're driving down the Glen Highway,
this is true. Yeah. Yeah.
concentrating on the cars that you can do something about. You know, if something flies up into the air and coming the other way, and you look up and you see this big sedan flipping over 30 feet in the air heading your direction, you know, you can go like this or stop or go faster, but that you can't just be like a Jedi Knight and go, that doesn't work.
Be the start of something good.
Yeah, but worry about what you can.
But worry
Yeah.
about what it's going to do after you've used your adrenaline to do whatever you can do, and then worry about it, not while because I've seen people like, driving down Northern Lights, icy conditions. I'm sitting at the UAA drive light, waiting for the light to change, for me to go, and here comes a woman in a Suburban driving along, and she hits a patch of ice, and the car just starts to go, and the woman's face is like, as the car now completely takes over itself, so she's in shock and not responding, which she at that point, even though it's sliding, you can still change the way it goes, but instead it just so slowly heads right towards that little electric box, the green box there, boof, right into it, and she could have changed the direction of that, but she was out. She was like just unable to.
Fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah, and that's so right when that can. I told you it still amazes me, the one in Hawaii, the day I was retired. We're going to my retirement briefing, not actually retired yet. Right, the lady spun in front of me and was sitting right across, and it was like hit her or hit the guy. At the last minute, you do something.
Hit the guy next.
Hit the guy next. Well, but I didn't, because at the exact moment that I turned to hit him, he turned as far as he could too, so the two of us made a perfect S around the car.
Nice.
I came out on the other side without a scratch.
Pay attention to.
Yeah.
Because if you had hit that other guy, you'd have been responsible for that accident.
Oh.
You should have hit.
Oh, well,
That-
I think
that's how it
you're
is.
responsible either way, actually.
If the
Because
person's
if I'm
out-
hitting anyone, that's my fault.
Okay.
That's how I would interpret that. But
'Cause the
I would be
certificate's
dead
out.
if I hit that person.
Yeah,
If I hit this person, there's a chance. So I decided to hit that person. But he was a Jedi Knight. The two of us went like nothing. No one hit anything, and it was like, and then the adrenaline, and then you're done, and now your adrenaline has nothing to do, and you sit there going like this, looking at him, and he was doing the same thing, and the two of us were like, how you do?
So if you guys witness an accident, do you pull over to like check on them? Or
Depends.
Saw the accident.
If you're
Depends on
not
the
able to
accident.
pull over, you're supposed to at least call.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because there are some situations where like you're physically unable to pull over, but
Yeah,
you're supposed
you-
to call.
Because especially if it's like icy conditions
Yeah.
and the accident looks like, okay, this is going to be a pileup, and if you park anywhere near that, you'll be part of the pileup
Park in the
eventually.
middle
So,
lane of the highway.
Yeah.
so
Yeah, or it's on the other
Use-
side of, say, the Glen, and,
Yeah.
you know, and it'll
Well,
just be
the
more
parking
dangerous
fence
trying to, yeah.
Or that's where like a lot of people really like having the dash cams, because then like this was like 2-3 years ago, someone was driving drunk and literally started driving on the other side of the highway, like it was, like, crossed over, started driving. So all they had to do, and all they had to do was submit the video. They were like, hey, I saw this, and so they were able to get the plate and everything, and like the time of day, 'cause it was on the dash cam.
it was something scary. I didn't realize I was doing it, but we were driving on Connecticut Avenue in Washington, D.C. once, and I would go into Washington, D.C. a lot, but usually just on the weekends for things. But for whatever reason, we were coming back from Walter Reed, going down Connecticut, and it was in the evening during rush hour, and you have to pay attention because the signs tell you that even though you got all these lanes, at certain times of the day, the lanes are all going that direction or this direction. You know, so I was
First
in,
mistake was driving decent.
but so I'm in the middle lane.
Yeah.
But at the particular time I was there, that middle lane wasn't the lane going the direction I was going. They were all going the other way. And so I was actually doing precisely that kind of thing where I was,
What happens if you're going
Heading.
through and it switches? You're going through that middle lane and it switches on.
good, you have to know what time it is. It's like 4 to 6 or something. These lanes are all going that way. But
I just
in
do
the
my best
morning,
to
they're
stay out
coming
of
the
it.
other way. So you have to be aware of which way they go. But so this is essentially a Stoic technique. I think if we talked about the Stoics, you know, that Stoic mien that they have, you know, where they're going through hell, but they're calm, collected, and they're in control of themselves, right? That's essentially the technique. So that's as old as Rome, at least. But that's essentially a main part of what he's talking about here, is that you have to be aware that you are in control of your own attitude towards things. And I don't know if that means while you're in the supermarket, you can imagine that the woman who's all upset is the woman that helped a friend of yours get their driver's license the other day, even though they shouldn't have gotten it or something. You know, whatever, you know. So just imagine things that I think he says are probably impossible, but could have, you know, could be. You know, just so that you're okay with the stresses the other person's going through, so that you're not angry, because the angry part doesn't help.
I think it's more, and he did touch on it as well, and I was looking at it, just get over yourself. You know, everybody here is going through the same thing, you just have to wait your turn. That is just fair, you know?
I don't know if you saw it, because the link I have, this isn't the one where they're actually the fish, right?
No, it's just.
Anybody feels like perspiring.
Picture him and then the.
Yeah, but there's this one. So this
There are
is the
these
same
two young
lecture.
fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the two young fish swim
This
on
is
for a
nicely
bit,
done,
and then
because
eventually
instead
one
of
of them
just the
looks over
lecture,
at the
you
other
get
and
all
goes,
these.
"What the hell is water?"
But so
This, I submit, is freedom of
So that little glance with the other person is, okay, so these are two people that are both capable of controlling their own attitudes. And that little look that they give one another where there's like a smile that they both realize, this is a horrible situation, but we'll get through it. And at the end of this little video clip, as he's narrating it, they walk out almost arm in arm. I guess I passed it, but
And understanding how to think. The alternative is unconsciousness, the default setting, the rat race, the constant gnawing sense of having
so
had
the two of them
and
walking
lost
out together, it's
some
like,
infinite thing.
because they were both thinking positively like that in that situation, that they met one another, and you get the sense that they live forever, happily after. No, I don't know. So there's benefits to that. It's not just cutting back on the stresses in your own body, and like my wife, she's, I've got to cut back on stress, and I'm like, we've got our own house, we have a million in assets, we have this, we have, what stresses do you have? But she'll find something to be stressed over.
It's really annoying.
The gravity.
Because I think it really is like a female thing.
Well, one of the
because
reasons
it's
we're
like
in
you
this.
think and think for, like, I think and think and think, and then, like, I'll try to go to bed and not think about anything, and then my boyfriend just falls asleep. And it's just so frustrating.
I love it.
Well, I admit, one of the
And,
reasons.
like, I've asked other people, like
we're in
my
good
friends
shape.
and coworkers, and they,
It's
like,
'cause
have
of-
the same thing, too, is they'll just start thinking, and they try to relax, and it's not.
Donna's
It may not
always
be
been the
easy,
one
but it's
to
gonna be-
do all the paperwork,
Really.
except for the taxes. Somehow I always get the taxes.
Doesn't seem
But she does all the paperwork for, she's the one that made it possible for us to adopt the 4 kids. The 3 wonderful kids and the one that.
I just know too much. So it's
whose
really funny.
birthday is today, by the way. So
Oh.
we're going to go to Fat Ptarmigan downtown. That's the restaurant he asked to go. And he's bringing his current live-in. She's been with him now for a couple of years, I think. So it's only sent him to jail once or twice, I think. No, well, that's complicated. However, yeah. So Donna's done all that stuff, and had it been all up, that's why I seriously advise young males: find the smartest woman that will marry you, marry them, and then do what they say, because they're stressing out about 50 years from now. Will you have enough bottles to turn in for, change, so that you can keep winning in the slot machine? I don't know. Donna's absolutely convinced we're going to win the house that's just finished built, that is like, everybody, billions are putting in their sweepstakes tickets to win this house, and she's planning.
Oh, is it so
She's convinced. She'll spend like half an hour at night looking at all the pictures of her house.
Oh,
Oh,
And it's
no.
like,
that might be obsessive enough.
Yeah.
well,
Every chance I see for a giveaway, I always enter it. What if, I guess. I don't get obsessive about it.
That's
but-
all you need, that one
Yeah, just-
ticket.
Just not want it.
So,
Like bingo.
Yeah.
I love
and of course I gotta relate personally, right? And I always relate back to my, my military experience. And it's, I think whenever you go through, I don't know what you call it, a life-altering experience or a large event, it puts everything else in perspective. And at the end of the movie, The Hurt Locker, which is, UD guys doing UD stuff, he's back in the States, and it's probably the best scene, the most realistic scene in the whole movie. And his wife's like, pick out some cereal. And so he goes to the cereal aisle and he's standing there. And he just looks down and it's just cereal. It's just like, fuck it. And he just grabs a box at random. Because like the whole volume of everything else, once it's in perspective, just gets turned completely down, and all the rest of that is shit. I mean, it's just it seems inconsequential.
So let me back up here to this, because this is a great way to end the course. I think I will still be here, as I said, for the last session. We could actually do this then if you'd rather do it then. But so, what time, what era do we live in? Post-industrial, postmodern, contemporary. Well, contemporary, you can use contemporary all the time because it literally means with now. Tempus fugit, etc. Right, but since the 1860s, the French started referring to our era as the postmodern. And you think, well, if the modern period starts with like Descartes, can't go on forever. So when do you historically decide? Okay, so this has a coherent aspect to it that enables us to. This is Baroque. This is the Renaissance. This is the Middle Ages. You've got to come up with some sort of family resemblance that enables that whole period to be. And obviously, it's going to be different because if you're thinking in terms of Europe, you can assign that a particular time period. Middle Ages, that won't apply to China, who doesn't have that. They had a Middle Kingdom, totally different than Middle Ages, right? But so, whatever. We call it the postmodern period. That's one way of doing it. Which doesn't mean post now. So, modern, I guess you could interpret that way. It means just the mode. How do you, what's chic now, right? You could say that's modern. But if you're going to say, okay, Descartes to Kant maybe was the modern period, and then you have the Romantic period or something of that sort. But so they call it the postmodern. So if we call it that, what are they talking about? Well, I thought it would be cool to run over what, in this context, they meant by modern. So for the moderns, they were thinking that science and technology are good. People are equal. We hear that, in our Constitution, all men are created equal, Declaration, right? Sounds on the face of it absolutely ridiculous, especially when if you visit Monticello, you see all the slave quarters. Even the pictures of Sally, who was his slave, etc. So all people are equal. Even the people that said that didn't mean it in the incredibly general sense. And certainly, you could easily recognize different individuals. So obviously, we're not equal in our appearance. Our DNA is different. So what do they mean by it? They meant in justice, in the political sense, the individuals that had part of the franchise that could vote. Those were the people they were talking about. Their legal rights were equal to one another. And remember, they were especially thinking of King George. What makes him king? He's just the same as us.
What was his argument that God chose him or something like that?
Well, yeah.
Every monarch,
That was
essentially.
Didn't they try to offer King George,
Yes.
George Washington?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kingship?
Yeah, well, they were going through what we might call a paradigm shift, where everyone thought, well, that's the natural order of things, that God creates this. The king is obviously God on earth, or the Pope is. Certainly there are people that go to the Vatican and see the Pope come out on the balcony, and they're thinking that's God on earth. They think that. We might also think, well, he was elected by the College of Cardinals to hold that role. So theoretically, he represents God on earth for those that believe it, etc. Right? You could certainly do that. And by the way, he's your pope as well. Even if you're not Roman Catholic, etc. He thinks of himself as God's minister on earth to all people. In fact, the whole world, really, animals too. But
Didn't that
so-
cause controversy when he said that? Sorry. But like this new pope, when he was like, even animals go to heaven, and like people like started losing their minds. Yeah.
oh yeah.
Everyone was like, "What are you talking about?"
What?
Yeah.
There's a movie called All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Okay, so, but I
Oh,
guess
man,
there's
that's
like, I don't know if it's different religions or what it is, but it's like animals don't have souls. And then when this pope got elected, he was like,
Oh.
"Oh, animals have souls as well."
Yeah, because
And,
the
like,
church's
they go to heaven.
theology is Aristotelian,
Yeah.
and Aristotle said if it moves, it has a soul. That's
Yeah.
what makes it move. And animals, of course, and Aquinas is an Aristotelian, and that's still the official dogma of the Roman Catholic Church. So, yeah, animals have souls too.
Or, like,
So the
you'll
Pope-
see the
Pope can surprise a lot of Catholics
Yeah,
who don't know their own
yeah.
theology. Well,
Or like,
duh.
like I found out through a series of memes, as stupid as that sounds, there were these two churches across the street from each other. And one was like, "Oh, even dogs go to heaven," and the other one was like, "No, they don't." When they were like talking to themselves through like the boards that you can like put the letters on. And it was like they were literally arguing about it. And then finally, the church
Really
that doesn't
worked out
believe
for
animals
them.
have souls was like, "So are you saying rocks go to heaven too?" And then this church, like their final thing was, "All rocks go to heaven." And it was just like. It was insane, but I looked it up and it was like an actual argument that I guess like two different religions were having. It was like, do animals have souls? And it was just the weirdest thing to me.
Right. Go from animals to rocks.
Have you ever seen the...
So does that make me a murderer if I kill an animal and eat it?
I mean, I guess,
If
No.
it has a soul?
but
It
it has a
doesn't.
soul, and it's
Okay.
innocent. It's not like,
I'm just saying, if we say they got souls and they went to heaven, is that the same as murder?
So there's a difference between killing and murder, though.
Oh.
They're very similar, but
So if
they're
I kill a
different.
person and eat them,
that's a good point.
is that murder?
No, that would be murder because they're a person.
Oh. Murder only applies to
Animals may have souls, but they're not persons.
Right. I don't think animals
But
are
aren't
just
they
neither.
treated
They're
like
killing other
innocent
people.
souls?
Yeah, they're
Right.
killing animals
So,
that are worse than
a
us.
dog speaks.
So
Killing a dog, you can picture the dog writing.
I don't know if
And
you've
it's
heard this
called
poem
the
before,
Revenant.
but talking about God, dogs.
The Revenant. I am the dog you put to sleep, as you like to call the needle of oblivion. Come back to tell you this simple thing. I never liked you.
wow.
When I licked your face, I thought of biting off your nose. When I watched you toweling yourself dry, I wanted to leap and unman you with a snap. I resented the way you moved, your lack of animal grace, the way you would sit in a chair to eat, a napkin in your lap, a knife in your hand. I would have run away, but I was too weak. A trick you taught me while I was learning to sit and heel and, greatest of insults, shake hands without a hand. I admit the sight of the leash would excite me, but only because it meant I was about to smell things you had never touched. You do not want to believe this, but I have no reason to lie. I hated the car, hated the rubber toys, disliked your friends, and worse, your relatives. The jingling of my tags drove me mad. You always scratched me in the wrong place. All I ever wanted from you was food and fresh water in my metal bowls. While you slept, I watched you breathe as the moon rose in the sky. It took all of my strength not to raise my head and howl. Now I am free of the collar, free of the yellow raincoat, monogrammed sweater, the absurdity of your lawn. And that is all you need to know about this place, except what you already supposed and are glad it did not happen sooner, that everyone here can read and write, the dogs in poetry, the cats and all the others in prose.
It's just one of my favorite poems, and that's the poet, Billy Collins. He was our national poet laureate. when September 11th, 2001 happened, and the country was so upset that the committee that was supposed to pick the next poet laureate forgot. And so he ended up being one of the only poet laureates, as far as I know, that ended up with being the poet laureate for 2 years.
Jeez.
Because they forgot to switch. So that's kind of interesting. There's a National Poet Laureate site you could go to where they have all the poet laureates plus samples of their poetry and things of that sort. But, so I think of Dogs Go to Heaven. I know there's a movie, All Dogs Go to Heaven, and that's a great movie too. But his poem, the surprise of it. Here's the dog writing back to the master from heaven, and it's just hilarious because it's totally the opposite of what you think that relationship you have with your dog is, that the dog loves you. You find out.
So can dogs go to hell then? They have a soul, it's got to be judged, right?
But
there's a lot of...
hell?
Well,
Is there even a heaven?
This is true.
Is there even the levels in heaven like one religion has?
Well, so seriously...
Legit. And then
Yeah,
and then the levels,
Norse
like the
mythology.
higher the level, the further you can look down, but you can't look up on your level.
So
Some dumb had to
here's
do that.
my serious thinking about this. Because remember, I was raised Roman Catholic, and I really hated the idea of giving up the concept of heaven. But the idea that there's like a place. When you're a kid, you think there's like a place, and you actually go there, and everything is like the Monty Python. When they come into heaven. You seen it?
Not yet.
Not that one. I don't
Where
think so.
where they so this is from The Meaning of Life. This is when they've all entered heaven. It's like a resort.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's truly a real honorable experience to be here this evening. A very wonderful and warm and emotional moment for all of us. And I'd like to sing a song.
And these are all the people in the movie that have died during the movie. Including, there's a head on the table that you see,
It's
from...
Christmas in heaven, all the children sing. It's Christmas in heaven, hark, hark, those church bells ring. It's Christmas in heaven, the snow falls from the sky. But it's nice and warm and everyone looks smart and wears a tie. It's Christmas.
So you get that kind of stuff absolutely destroys your opportunity to believe in the childish thoughts that there's some place where, because you realize, geez, what would that be like? The 72 virgins, that would be really dumb, right? Think about it. What the heck? By the way, you've heard that translation was misread or mistranslated. It really was 21 or 72 white ones, and the scholars believe that what they meant was everybody gets 72 white grapes or golden raisins, white raisins.
Man, they're gonna be disappointed.
Yes, So I even made this joke the other night when I said I suddenly feel for raisins, and I just took a couple handfuls out of the golden raisin box, and of course my friends all start saying, well, there's 72, it's because they know where I think with that. But so here's my version of heaven that I believe in now. Since physicists tell us that all time exists at once, and every moment is eternal, your life from when you begin to be conscious to when you die is eternal, every single moment of it. From the contemporary scientific physicist point of view, which, by the way, Everything and More, David Foster Wallace, his best book, I think, actually. And Roger Scruton brings this up too when he was in that interview. Asked about, well, you don't believe this stuff anymore. He says, well, actually, every moment's eternal. Right? So you are creating your own eternity every decision you make. And if you're making good decisions, your reward is that that's your eternal soul's condition to be happy, because you've had that kind of self-control over, so that you're feeling happy about it rather than not. You're making that decision, and if you're doing good things so that you don't feel guilty about how you did this to the woman while she was sleeping, or Al Franken, you imagine he's going to feel guilty for that. What is, a stupid thing to do, posing for the camera, hate it for the rest of his life, and it's for all eternity. So think how the physicist's conception that every moment is for all eternity, and you make that, you get one chance to make that decision. If you make a good one for all eternity, you've got that reward. If you make a bad one that you're going to rue for the rest of, it's not just for the rest of your life you're going to rue it, it's for all eternity.
Is that based on, are you basing that on Christian doctrine at all?
Well,
because within Christianity, it's not about what you do.
So Christian doctrine is essentially a story, right? And how do you interpret it? And if you're trying to interpret it in a way that doesn't work with our scientific viewpoint, then you can't believe it. It doesn't work for you, and do you give up the Christian dogma then? But no, if instead you find a different way of interpreting that same dogma, it still works. And it's, in other words, you could say, yes, I'm still a Christian, yes, I still believe this, but this is how I interpret what that means.
I think that's
I'm playing chess with the whole, everything. But what I'm looking for is a theory that fits science, but that also fits what.
It's still a theory, but if you're following Christian dogma, I can't talk. It's not about the actions you take leading to heaven, whether you are good or bad. That doesn't give you salvation. It's about faith in Christ as the Son of God.
Well, so there is a dispute over whether it's by faith alone. Jesus saved you, and you have faith in that. But in a sense, we're able to think this way because of what Jesus' message was and how it persisted through time and became the Christian dogma. So I can even think about it because of Jesus. So I have faith in Jesus, right? But it isn't just by faith alone. That's just the Lutheran response to the Catholic belief that you have to also have action. So you can't just believe something and then not help the poor.
Yeah.
You still have to do that in order to have those good feelings, right? So I have a Lutheran T-shirt that says it's sola scriptura, so just belief in the Scripture will do it.
So how would a Catholic justify somebody converting to Christianity on their deathbed? Because they have no actions backing that.
Well, but it's still better than nothing. I mean, because you're getting at least a momentary's,
Okay.
But that would also mean that they've been thinking about it.
And then here's a question. Just because...
But it's still not necessary, I don't think.
So
Pope Francis wouldn't say you have to be a baptized Catholic in order to be in heaven.
Okay.
No, but I mean,
The Buddha would certainly be there.
I grew up with a dad who he went to Catholic school and everything, and he always makes jokes. My mom grew up Baptist. He's like, she's still getting into heaven, but I'm at the higher tier of heaven. So that's kind of how it is. It's you're still gonna go, You're just not going to be like as a high.
Well, if your soul's eternity is what you've actually accomplished throughout your conscious life, the more wonderful things and the better you feel about your life that you've accomplished,
I have a question.
the higher tier you
So-
are, in a sense.
God's
That
out.
still fits, I think.
So
I'm making it up as I go, but
God's outside of time, right? So
yes.
he's outside of time and space. And then if you're following Christian dogma, you are a joint heir with Christ for the salvation, right? So you're basically a son of God, which would mean then you are also divine, which would also mean not like in the sense that you are God, but I mean like in you are no longer. I don't know how to explain that, but you're a joint heir, right? You're part divine. Then.
I would say that, remember
When
that
you then be outside of time. as well.
Michelangelo, it's the mind of God that's depicted in that big cloud,
Mhm.
right? And so, in a sense, what makes us divine is our capacity for knowledge,
Mhm.
self-reflection. I think that makes us divine, and our capacity for love would also have to be tied into that from the Christian point of view.
But then do you think we would be outside of time as well if we're divine? If divine is outside of time, would we then be outside of time
I
as
like
well?
that idea.
Which then what do we make of the eternal moments of our lives?
Right, right.
Because if we're outside of time, then we no longer have any.
See, that's the point that I have trouble with, because I don't believe that. And I believe that there are physicists who actually say, oh, and I can probably do some math and prove it, that all moments are eternal. That just sounds like quack science to me, honestly. Is that a widely accepted theory? Because, I mean, I think most people would agree isn't time linear.
No, I hate to say it, but there are some things that we're just not meant to understand.
Yeah,
I feel like how
or
all this works is
We don't have the tools, at least at this stage, to understand it. And it feels like there's, at any moment in history, there was thousands of reasons why things happened. The world was flat or whatever, and then one guy came up with the right idea, and then all those other stupid theories are forgotten.
Well, you're sick, let's drain your blood.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, like oh my God.
That doesn't look right. That looks wrong.
We can say it even if something's linear. Well, I mean, now you'd have to have like a time within time thing.
So this is the
It's like-
Einstein code. And so this is always that shape because this is always now.
Mhm.
But so this is the future in this drawing here, right? But so all of this exists all the time. So that's my understanding of the current physicist's point of view, is that all time exists at once.
But even in that graphic, time is moving. Time is flowing.
The observer is flowing,
Mm-hmm.
but all of time, so it's like the highway from here to Anchorage,
Mm-hmm. You're traveling.
you're traveling it, but the highway's still there.
Mhm. But it's not. It's gone. It's changed. It's out of our existence. So
From the observer's point of view.
and from everyone else's.
But then, isn't this an
From
argument
all in,
for
well,
that?
well, there's the secular point of view, which is you're viewing things from an observer point of view,
Mhm.
but there's also the eternal.
Isn't this just an argument
Which
for
is the whole thing.
you're fated to do whatever you're going to do? Because it's already there. It's already been.
That's
So that
that's
means you're just
certainly
seeing
an
what's
issue.
already
That's,
happened.
that's the Presbyterian problem. That it's already in St. Augustine because Augustine realized, oh, this sounds like God already knows whatever you're going to do. So how can He punish
Do we
what you're
truly
But
doing?
that only
free
assumes
will.
that line is static, that my actions and whatnot can't move, and that whole thing doesn't just do this. As I change the diction of my,
What if you're just
my
That's why
observing, might
I
have
didn't
an
like
outcome
that other
that's
one
already
because
been
it
done.
gave an
well,
observer.
no, I don't
Sorry,
think
is
it's
it?
you're
That's
an
not-
observer. That's your perspective. You know what I'm
So-
saying? I don't think it's necessarily preset, but and you're not an observer. Yeah, you're seeing it, but it's your perspective. But and we'll use the highway. If I choose to take an off ramp, that whole thing goes whoop and goes this way.
Oh,
Can I set a new
well-
line?
Well, this is your going off the ramp because it's always whatever you're going to do.
Yeah. So then it was always fated
That's
to go off the
remember
ramp.
Nietzsche
No, it's-
talks about
yeah,
the
It happened
eternal
too, which means
recurrence.
that was already there.
But that means
happens
but that
in
only
a way
works if it's
happening over
predetermined.
and
If
over
it
and
doesn't,
over
I'm the one in charge.
It's always
I
the
don't
same.
know. It's a weird argument.
You know what I mean? Well, and that's why everybody keeps having the same argument for like the last 50 years, 100 years, whatever.
Yeah, and if you're,
And what it comes down to is it's all theory.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, yeah, we're just
Yeah.
arguing over
Yeah.
something that no one will ever solve.
And then when somebody does, which they might one day, who knows,
Probably not.
you know, and then everything else is just like, oh, that was stupid, throw that cone away, or whatever. You know?
No, because there's that idea of we could live in this, but obviously if God created the world,
Well,
He
that's-
created that just the same.
That's why I like
Greatest things, God.
Stuart Hameroff's point of view with Roger Penrose, that our soul is essentially quantum in nature. So
It's the
that,
two places at once.
yeah, because
Oh, so like it's already where it's
the
supposed to
quantum
be. we're just
particles are
adding to
forever,
it with it
right?
now.
You know, they're
Okay,
Mhm.
I get that. That makes sense.
so my mind is a quantum computer as opposed to a linear Turing type machine, and so you know that's why when I say what was the first thing you did this morning when you woke up, you know, and then okay you respond, and then I'm saying okay well you just time traveled because you're essentially connected through the quantum tunneling business to your own particles, you know, which you're entangled with, which is your consciousness. So if I could go back to, you know, when I'm on the beach for the first time and learning what the sand feels under my toes, you know, that's I'm quantum tunneling to that time and place. So in other words, you know the theory that if we had a time travel machine, we could go back and forth, etc. Right? You know, so you get all kinds of science fiction stories. Well, in
I
a
don't
sense,
believe
your
that's
brain.
real.
Well,
Sorry.
from the quantum tunneling point of view, you do have a time travel device. It's your brain, right?
That's
And so all
something to
those
say you can imagine
conscious
the
states
future,
that
and might be the other end of it.
you've experienced throughout your life are interconnected.
Yeah.
And of course, we get issues like, well, what happens if your brain is damaged? Now you can't do that anymore.
Well, not to mention
That
it's
screws
really,
up the theory. You
it's
know,
really
so
kind of
how
partial.
do we get around that? You know.
because while you can remember a memory, right? It's normally not actually like it's not 100% true because we build our memories off of things we remember, and then we build it from there.
Yeah.
So like I might remember being here last Tuesday, right? I remember the roof has dots on it and we had lights, but then like in what way the dots are oriented or what I'll make up in my head because I won't remember that specifically, and so you create kind of a fake artistic version of what actually happened.
Well, and now I would
So you
say
don't remember like some specific sensation, maybe a
And
sight
you have the
or
myelin
touch.
sheath on your neurons to keep the leakage from preventing us from achieving kind of a secular kind of achievement.
I would say the argument for that though
But
is
that-
there are individuals out there with photographic memories. And so I think it's like a machine, you know, if you have a high quality machine, you get a better image. You know, high quality camera.
Yeah.
And I do think that if we're following the thought process, which again I don't necessarily agree with, but yeah, maybe imagination is your tool into the future because okay, I've got a pretty good set idea of what I'm gonna do during lunch today. And as long as I can keep my wants and all my basic needs and my preconceived notions out of the equation, I can pretty accurately lay that out. And some people may say that's time travel.
I feel like that's for a short amount of time. We can't like say, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to do 3 weeks from now for lunch.
And it all depends on the information you have at hand and your ability to process it, which again goes back to quality of the thinking.
But that's when you do it though, you might have a deja vu experience and feel to yourself,
If you remember perfectly,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't mean they'll remember perfect sensation.
I can imagine those sensations.
Exactly, yeah.
Imagine them not.
isn't this
Yeah,
fun?
it's a magic.
Again, no.
Remember.
But what's the
It's
difference?
Yeah, no,
reading
Paige,
it
I
rather
thought
than
brought up like a
totally
really
On the other
good
hand,
And again, back to
apart
what you
from
said, depending on how well
helping
memory is,
your
you
own
are imagining
mind
a lot of
feel-
things too.
perfect memory.
at ease or
No, I was just arguing
Perfect
that
memory,
phone that's able
sensation,
to time
audio
travel.
and everything.
One, because a futuristic of yourself will remember what you have done in the past, and then the one proceeding forward, going to time travel, will think, oh, like, maybe I'll get to see myself, or I have to watch out for myself, but you can't, because the future of yourself will remember, like, oh, like, this is the day I time traveled and you're gonna land a coffee shop, so
Just don't
it's
look
just you can't.
I don't think time travel is or will ever be, because if it will ever be, we would already know about it. That's kind of my thought. I mean, like classic time travel, like we get a machine and we
Well,
go
no,
somewhere.
but it's like the
I'm
same
not
thing.
saying like it's a fine argument, I'm just
Yeah.
saying,
Oh, no,
I
no.
think like time travel will never be possible.
I agree.
First of all, because you remember what you've done in the past, if it's been a traumatic or a real life changer, you will remember it, and we have too many tools to document. We can write it down, you know.
Well, also
I don't
just
know.
think about how much like massive energy would be involved to move it. When you have a quantum particle moving from one spot to another spot, or being in two spots at the same time, it's minuscule. It's hilariously tiny, which is why it can have enough energy to do that. If you try to do that on our scale, with an object as big as we are, the amount of energy is exponential compared to that tiny particle that did the same thing. So for us to do the same thing that tiny thing's doing, it'd be insane the amount of energy.
And yet, every single particle that makes up your body is in that scale as well as in what we think of as the macro scale.
I don't know.
And they're all entangled.
To keep it together. Well, yeah, to keep it from untangling. I don't know. Because if you did it,
Right.
you kind of have to do it like a process that, like one part of you at the same time.
I mean, it's
And then eventually, what, you be like half of you and like dead or something? I don't
All
know.
this technology and all of a sudden Windows and on your planet Noxus and for those Earth and no one knows.
So,
We even existed ourselves.
Well, so, moderns think science and technology are useful and good. All people are equal.
that's far to go.
Rationality and intelligence are what makes it possible for someone to be successful. Science, rather than ancient myths or religious beliefs, is necessary for the success of society. History shows our progress has been great and should continue to make life, progress. Individual rights should be subservient to general needs of society. That one might be a little tough to figure how that ties in. And each person is a self-made individual with freedom to make his or her own choices. Well, but today we don't think any of those are true.
So now we're postmodern.
So now we're postmodern.
I think we're
So we no longer
hypermodern.
have confidence that science is bound to have good results because we've discovered that it can also blow things up.
That's like 3/4 of our fiction right there.
I mean,
Yeah,
Science and progress are evil, you know.
Terminator.
I might find a light that I can't explain why it always goes on whenever I walk into the cave, but there it is. So there are things, but it could also be killing us. I'm taking more medicine now than I even knew existed when I was years ago. I'm not sure what all of this stuff does, but the doctor's like, oh, let's try a little more of this and a little less, whatever. So, and we don't know what that's going to do. It might turn me into a wolf man.
More distracting.
That's also interesting from the perspective of us questioning, like flat earthers, questioning global warming. I mean, as a people, like we are literally questioning whether the science.
Why isn't there a flat Mars society?
Seriously.
That makes me laugh.
That's planetist.
I don't want to go into this right now. Please change the subject. Let's not go down
That's
that
is that going to be on your
I have
website?
a
You have
question.
to share that with
We
go.
have a flat Earth. What kind of
So
standard
now that
do you
now that there's the
Could still be a
what's the thing, like it's like, hey Google, turn on the lights. Or,
Yeah, hey
Google.
Alexa.
Does that, so does that, or Alexa, does that machine remember what you have asked
Yes.
in the
have?
past?
Yeah, that's
Not only that, they say it's listening.
Yeah, it's always listening.
Yeah, it actually.
It's a big brother.
It's like an evil elf on the shelf. Okay.
Yeah.
Is
They're
it-
like omnipotent informational powers.
Back to
Okay, yeah.
Google.
Well, because
so it's
I
like
just
who
saw
you
something
trust.
really
Sorry.
creepy, like I don't know, you put someone in the bathtub and you throw in the hairdryer and you're like, hey Alexa, turn on the hairdryer to kill them, and it looks like a suicide. So then I was wondering if the
It's not
machine.
video. It doesn't have
Did
video.
you see an article that said a morgue employee accidentally while taking a nap was cremated?
No, I just saw it.
I'm
As
sorry.
soon as I saw that, I thought
technology.
that's got to be fake news. That's
No, that can't be real. I don't know how that could be
But on the other
Well,
hand,
because
people
I
are
was wondering
stupid.
if it looked like if it looks like a suicide, but someone else
But it
actually
can't
did
make
it.
sense.
Would the machine be able to remember, like if the police came in?
The machine can't make sense of any of that stuff.
No,
So
but
you
it
could
is
get
away
always
with
listening.
murder.
It is always listening,
It
but
might
it
be
can't
able to
make
replay these
sense of
specific
that.
audio.
So then
It
you
can't
possibly
make
could get
executive
away
actions.
with murder because
Well,
then you don't have any fingerprints.
If they have an actual recording, like if it actually sends recordings of the voice to the database and it records your specific audio, they could identify you by voice recognition.
Yeah, so that would be one way to do
And
that.
But I'm pretty sure
But if
Google
some-
can't
but if
share
you're
any
to
of that.
ask,
Like,
like,
we can't.
Yeah, I know.
Hey
But
Siri
Not
did.
supposed to.
Did someone?
But then again,
Then
come
there's
on.
that.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
like Siri, like keeps track. There's actual like Apple keeps track of every single thing that you've ever asked Siri. I don't know if it happens
done
with
on my
Alexa.
phone.
Yeah,
It's metadata.
yeah. I don't know if that same thing happens with Alexa, but I do think there was like one video that popped up, and it was like someone asked Alexa like if they were connected to the CIA, and like it turned on, but it never responded.
Oh,
So
And then it
it's
shuts
like,
off.
like in that theory, like hypothetically, if that's true and like not a faked video, like in my head they
That's pretty
would
funny.
like be keeping audio and like would be in fact like listening and keeping certain
Okay, yeah.
information.
Well, my
Have you
mom
ever
and brother want the dumb Alexa, and I told them no, and I told them no, they cannot have the Google, and they're like, you're just like grumpy pants, and I'm like, no, like this is technology we don't need in our house, and we're already being watched on
Have you seen
our
Black Mirror?
iPhones, our computers.
Yes.
You
That's-
know which
that's-
episode I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Say that again?
Have you seen Black Mirror
No.
on Netflix?
That's
Well, I think I
essentially
do
what
Yeah,
it is.
that
That's what it
that
is.
episode is kind of what we're
So,
Yeah.
so you guys remember when Mark Zuckerberg, he gave an interview, and in the background his laptop was sitting on the computer
With tape on it.
with the tape over
Yeah.
over the thing, and it like was a big deal, and he was
course.
essentially like, yeah, because there's ways
Yes.
to turn that on remotely.
Yeah.
Now think of Alexa as a thing that's
Oh,
going to sit in your house
there's
and
a
record
movie I
absolutely
could bring in
everything.
if you haven't seen it, and
24
that is
hours
The
a day.
Circle.
Okay, so how do you feel about like
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
The movie
The movie The Circle?
Oh, I did see
Well, there have
that.
definitely been cases in the past where, specifically the one I'm thinking of is camera phones.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
it was some sleazy porn site, and they hacked into people's phone cameras and took pictures of them while they were watching pornography, and then posted them all over the internet. It was hilarious, but kind of creepy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, like the NSA
They-
can do all
they-
of this stuff
Uh-huh.
they can do that.
and other foreign.
It's not even that.
entities,
It's just
so.
like people who know how to hack it
Yeah.
can do all that.
It's usually just people. Well, the good news is Apple and other companies like that absolutely outright refuse to help the federal government on
Yeah.
just
That's
about
why they
everything,
couldn't-
even
But-
when there's terrorism involved. So I
but-
think it's usually people.
But they'll take that
Well,
same information.
didn't they get a
and use it for their
teenage
own
kid
means.
to hack the phone so that
As
they
far
could
as,
actually
you know,
get the
sales
information?
and the ads and things like
But what's
that.
really interesting about that though is also is like Gates and Zuckerberg and like a whole bunch of different people with their smartphones constantly have tape over them, and they don't like that's just what they do is they constantly have tape over every like electronic device they have that has a camera, and they're like, yeah, I do, but if you ask them why, they're just like, oh, I just do. It's just like you know.
Oh, I just
people
turned it
hack
on
all
you.
the time. But it's like
They
it's
can't
not
stop
something that's commonly known. Yeah,
Okay,
It
so
just sort of makes sense. I mean,
it does.
why not
yeah.
keep it covered? I actually have on mine.
you know the
'Cause
ancestry.
it can be done.
Yeah.
You know that ancestry DNA thing where it goes and it processes all your
Yeah.
genetic data. Let's
I
say
tells you you're a caveman.
Yeah. Let's say you go and you or hack in, you find somebody's genetic data or most Americans' genetic data, and you could make something that would target Americans in specific because obviously we have different genetic. You know.
I mean, in theory, you can already do that because if
Yeah.
you've done that with Ancestry and if you have an Ancestry account, you can actually like communicate with people who have an account who like you're connected to. So you can be like, oh hey, it looks like we have like this same picture up.
Do your
for this
elbows
one
get?
person.
Do your elbows and knees get scriggly? It's like my whole family. We get as we get older, our elbows and knees get like scaly, like elephants.
No.
Weird.
I'm just throwing that out.
But, like,
So you're saying that's the kind of thing you would ask them.
I can check with
my dad,
my-
he works for the FBI, and so he's really cautious
Yeah.
about all that stuff because he sees, he
What's
goes
our
like,
elephant
these places
DNA?
like servers in China.
Mhm.
You know, if that's where your
Yeah.
DNA is going in the future, it's not too far of a leap to
Yeah.
say they can target it.
I mean,
Well,
in
yeah,
theory,
like,
they could
imagine-
already do that with the information that
Imagine
they
in the
have
next
released.
10 years, which, I mean, probably 10 years, probably 5, they discover, oh, there's actually a specific gene that makes you more inherently prone to violence as an adult species, male or female.
Boy, that
right?
makes me angry.
And then they're like, okay, so let's have we'll make all these people go to the army, or we'll target them with ads specifically to go to the army, or we'll just kill them all. And then we'll have a really docile population.
Or at birth, you switch on, switch
Yeah,
off.
so-
Gattaca.
That was a good
we're
movie.
gonna
That's
see
one we
freaky
should watch.
stuff.
I enjoyed that.
You know what
Next
next
10
we're talking
years.
about? Are you aware of that film?
What movie?
Oh yes.
Gattaca.
Yeah.
It's like you
I
can
thought I heard it wrong.
you can pick and choose what your child will be like.
Yeah.
Did we all have to like, watch that like FIO in like high school?
Yeah.
Yeah, you watched it.
No, it wasn't out when I was in high school.
So,
Freshman
Oh,
bio
man.
for
Yes.
I don't know if any of you have Snapchat, but if you like, you
I
have your
delete
phone open
Snapchat.
and then you do the thing where you open them, so you can see what all you've opened. If you notice, if you had Snapchat open and you go back, it's still like
It's still on.
the camera is still
Yeah.
on.
Yeah,
I don't
the
think it
camera's
is.
still
The
on.
camera still moves.
Yeah,
Yeah, it does.
For me, it did. Yeah.
So you
It
have
does.
to.
No,
It
mine
was
shows
like
black
LeBron
screen.
James, who it's like
Mine
they're
shows
keeping
black
our
screen.
like our like face rendered.
Because that was in the
Black screen?
Oh, there you go. Well,
Yeah,
did
it's
you
a-
last have it on like,
Let's see.
I've noticed
There
it
you go.
sometimes. Sometimes the screen will be black, sometimes it'll be on.
or even sometimes it's like still has the grids on, which is only there if you're like doing the face recognition in
Yeah,
the
it
first
shows,
place.
it shows what it was, but as
Yeah.
I turn it, it doesn't.
Yeah.
As I turn it, it doesn't.
Well, you could just
I don't
like
know, I
flip
just-
it open and like.
Yeah, or
Exit it,
you
right?
take pictures of somebody, and then Facebook will come up and say, "We've identified the other person in the room as such and such." Is that right?
Yeah, Facebook stuff.
Really?
Or how like
Is that
Google
what it
sells
is?
your searches. So like on Facebook, if you recently like Googled like let's say Hubble contact lenses, you'll all of a sudden see a whole bunch of ads for Hubble.
Yeah, that's.
See,
I've noticed that more.
targeted ads.
Yeah.
When I
And it'll
used
be
to
on
be,
like websites that have nothing to do with it too.
Yeah.
On
I've gotten some weird ones,
Wikipedia,
too.
It'll be pulling up like random websites you were on.
Yeah.
Busty singles in Eagle River. I see that frequently. See
But
that?
no, that's usually people who pay to advertise on that site. Specifically, they pay to advertise on that site versus targeted ads.
Yeah.
There's a
But
difference.
still, I mean, they still know where you are.
Yeah.
And I have all location services turned off, you know. But still, they're able to tell just by your IP address.
Yep.
I used to be
Great
on
use of
Amazon
Twitter.
Vine. Remember, I got all those free products, and I mean, it was all sorts of things, including like bras and clothes for teens and toys, playpens, curtain rods, all that kind of stuff. And
Like on Snapchat,
because
they
I
have, like,
had
a map.
received all that stuff,
Yeah.
I would get
Yeah, I
ads for all those kinds of things. So I got ads for the really, really
Like,
weird.
You can turn it off.
You
Like,
can
people
pick and
can't
choose.
find you. Like you can turn it off, you can turn it on. I'm like, I just don't like it anymore.
Yeah, you can pick and choose who can see it.
But
So-
still.
Oh, I just turned it off. I
Anyone-
didn't
yeah.
I didn't
Like,
want
That's what I
that.
see,
did,
I have
yeah.
friends who live over in Japan, so I think it's kind of cool. I'll open up a map and be like, oh, they're, it's kind of cool
Yeah.
to see that. But
It's
then you
a-
have that
it's a great
stalker
idea,
aspect.
And then I have the thing back
Yeah.
in my head. I'm like, well, anyone can find me. And
Mm. But it shows up to where the last time you opened the app. At least that's
But it
all I
also
have
it
set.
shows if you're driving though also.
It does.
So like if you didn't close the app, it'll show you literally in a car and it'll show you like moving down this map. Yeah. It's
yeah, well,
literally
isn't that
this
how
thing.
it says like no Snapchatting or driving too fast? Wasn't that? Did you guys?
But that happened before the map came out.
And
Oh.
forget all about the apps. Your phone is constantly receiving a signal if it has power.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
based
Yeah.
on that, they can locate you.
Uh-huh.
They, being Big Brother, whomever, I mean, you're essentially carrying a tracker
Yeah.
in your pocket.
Doesn't that
Yeah.
mean we're also all being microwaved constantly by all these waves in the?
Right next to my Tesla.
Yes.
And then there's that.
I was
Well,
talking about that this morning.
but
What about
any-
electric?
any
Nobody
place.
talks about with electric cars. Like,
Oh, that.
as a dude, I'm sitting there,
Got that
what's like
gigantic
this far
battery.
away from the battery. So we
As
know.
a temporary dude, you're saying.
You're a temporary man.
Okay, yes, that. But it's that close to the battery constantly, and nobody talks about the threat of cancer.
I feel like they probably research it, same as all the research that goes into your phone.
You guys
know,
seen
I
the thing
just-
with the
I can't
phone
get any
and the ants
information.
around the phone?
But at the same thing,
No.
at the same
I
time,
thought they found out that was
there's
fake.
well, there was
I
that one
don't see how you
article that
make
came
that
out
fake.
where your phone, someone like girl slept with her phone in her
Sure.
pocket and like she woke up and she like 3rd-degree burns from her phone. So
From the
Like-
battery,
like,
probably.
yeah.
I had that for my laptop once. My laptop battery got too hot and burned me on my leg. But it wasn't because it was sending and receiving a signal. It was just a crappy battery.
well, I don't know. Like I guess in
Or
my
you
head,
were
like,
blocking
in
the
theory,
vent,
that would
too.
be like
Yeah.
a potential issue for the electric cars as well, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, so, but they don't talk about that. They're just
No.
like, oh, you should.
On
look
the
at
other
your
hand,
electric
my
car.
Predator
Most probably
doesn't get hot at all, as far as I can tell.
So they're
My what?
Sir?
My
Yeah,
Predator, the
possibly,
laptop.
because small amounts of
This was an old laptop. They've
when
they've
exposed
solved that
to
a lot.
you can cause it.
It's like vents all around.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they get that one bad cell that replicates over and over.
Well, we've only got like 9 minutes left before we're officially done, except for the final session, and we've still got a couple other points here. So talking about equality, I don't think anybody really believes all people are equal today. That's like almost a joke. Rationality and intelligence. Wow, that's not really how you also need to know people. You need networking. There's biases, all sorts of things. I was interested reading the paper this morning, and women are really starting to throw men out of the workplace. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's time. We're going to throw all these assholes out of here. No more of this. Franklin, you're out, etc. That's kind of interesting.
I still think
It
it's
does
a
not-
rise for power too.
What's
For
that?
pa-
Like to
Trying
get
to
us
reestablish equilibrium.
trying to, I don't know. Like if that one guy was just one step ahead of you, and like if that
Oh, if you
person's
had
fun,
that
then you
dirt
can
on 'em.
move in
Yeah.
to that position. I don't know. That's still
I think they
possible.
would look at that too when you're like
Well,
accusing
yeah, they
people.
definitely will. So.
So that's
Of
kind
course,
of like
but
that
they,
shows
but
up.
they still have to criminally prosecute them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's
So
So he
there's-
isn't getting Franken. Well, not yet. He isn't having any criminal prosecution. It's
Yeah,
all-
I don't
that,
know.
That's the issue. Is a lot of people are saying, you know, this is great, but you need to start actually.
I
Yeah.
didn't get any impression that he actually did anything illegal, did he? Or what? I don't know.
That's the thing. It's really tricky. And
And should
he was
that
just-
expire?
he was
Neither did-
after a certain
Yeah.
time?
Roy Moore, as far as I mean, sure, it's weird that he's a 30-year-old guy trying to date a teenager, but,
yeah.
you know, gosh, that's not really illegal, is it?
And even if
Past
it were,
age.
it happened so long ago. It's past the statute, and
But it
you
could
know.
still ruin his career.
Oh,
I mean, it has.
because that's what society. Yeah.
Exactly. So,
Yeah, it's
I mean,
crazy
which is worse
how
than
much of it's going on right now with throwing out sexual harassment stuff. I just went on or watched the Today Show the other day, and all of a sudden Matt Lauer's gone too, and you're just like, well, like, I mean, like if they like did everything, cool, get them out, but it's crazy that all of this is happening in such a short period of time.
It
Yeah.
really makes you wonder about, you know, how many, you know, because then it just stands to reason. If there's 100 accusations, what, 95 of them may be right, 5 of them are going to be bullshit. Those 5 are going to ruin 5 lives.
Yeah,
you know?
because you don't know who's just an asshole as people are trying to get him out.
And there's a woman the other day who tried to. I think she sat down with the New York Post.
Washington Post.
Washington
I don't know what you're
Post.
talking
Washington
about.
Post, and she was saying, was it against Franken? She was trying to
No,
make
it was
an
Moore.
Yep.
Yeah,
It was against Moore.
Yeah, she
But
said
anyway,
that.
she was digging on it, and they found out it was all fake, and like nobody reported on that, and they really like.
because that doesn't
Well,
bring.
but they did report.
Yeah,
I mean,
the
the Washington
reporter
Post did
was
report
paying
the
her
ones who were
$1,000
trying to
for
use
the
the
story.
Post to
Yeah.
Yeah.
set them
Well, yeah,
up.
and no one
And
wants
they-
to go to someone who's saying that they're raped and be like, oh yeah, you weren't raped. You know,
Can't
like that's
blame- can't
you're
blame
gonna
the
feel
victim.
you're gonna feel bad either way. Like there's no right way out of that
That's how
situation.
Rome was
which-
founded, by the way, the rape of the Sabines, right? That's like
Romulus
their
and Remus.
mythical.
I thought that was the 2 dogs in the cow thing.
Romulus and Remus. Raised by a
Or
sheep.
wolf. No, it was the wolf. Yeah.
Well, so Romulus and Remus founded Rome. First thing they did was Romulus killed Remus because they disagreed over which mountain, one of the hills, should be the town. And then he started bringing in all sorts of other men that were not appreciated in the various towns around. And they basically built a gang, and then they realized they needed women. So what they did was they invited the Sabines, another town, to come and have a party. And once they got there, they stole all their women.
Mm.
So that's
Old new kind.
Old
Yeah,
move.
I guess this is the most famous painting.
It's amazing to me that we're in 2017 and we still have these issues as a society. That's just sort of.
Well, remember, we're living in the most progressive society, give or take Sweden, Norway, Denmark, right? But if you go to Saudi Arabia, is my favorite go-to country for this, right? You know how progressive. You know, I think they're still in the Middle Ages, actually.
Yeah, that women are now allowed to drive as of like a month ago.
So, but here's the thing: it's like I don't think we are, and we've never been, because
I don't think we're what?
beyond that, beyond any of that.
We never will be.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
and
never.
I think it's like this perception and we'll use the president for example, like his comment, about grabbing the ladies' hoo-has and whatnot. It's like, yeah, that's common shit you'd hear in a bar downtown, right here near the
Exactly.
river,
But
and
because
no one will be
he's
shocked,
But it's because he's running for president.
Well, and
Or
it
is
seems
president.
like that we have this standard that's different for
Give upon
I don't know
each person.
anybody else.
Well, yeah, they
like we
want-
have this. Well, they should be these.
He stuck to his script when he announced that Jerusalem was the capital, though.
I will say though, not that it should be excused.
So he's
just because
getting
it happened in
better.
the past, but
He's
Trump's
learning.
thing, the audio recording, that was 20 years old when it was revealed.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. I mean, that's something we should excuse because it's old. I'm just saying, at the same time, that's not necessarily who he is now.
Well, and just set
And
Trump
had it been a worse
aside.
crime, I mean, obviously he should have gone to jail for it. But
And-
like,
and
for
set-
something he said 20 years ago, an offhanded comment, it was a sentence 20 years
Yeah.
ago. That's a lot to bring up 20 years later. I mean,
Yeah.
And
a
set
sentence.
that aside. It's talk you would hear in every bar in every
It
high
is.
school. It's like
Not only
Yeah,
that,
every
French
truck stop.
politician's career.
Yeah.
No,
if you're
you want
following
to talk
their
about
lives.
Bill Clinton entered the president with sexual assault allegations
Yeah.
against him. George W. Bush was a recovered alcoholic. Barack Obama admitted to selling drugs in college to pay for his tuition.
Doing a lot of drugs.
I
well,
mean,
not to mention his mom was in porn, but I mean,
I don't know.
Wow.
nobody's
I
perfect.
didn't know that.
I did an article on
It
it.
doesn't excuse it. I haven't heard that.
Yeah, his mother. That's what she did.
No, it's not very presidential, but he's right. It does reveal flaw of
just people.
man, not just
You're not gonna
not
find the perfect
just.
person to be
It,
president.
it seems like we
Yeah,
want to say,
there's
hey,
not
we're
even a
above all
perfect
this. Like, we're
person
not.
to
This is
be
life.
president.
This is every
No.
day.
If someone
You
can make
can't
an
be
impact
perfect.
with people not to vote for someone because they don't want that person voted, they will do it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah,
That's
yeah,
why
so
laws are
true.
revealed.
Because I didn't hear a thing about it. I mean, sure.
Oh yeah,
eight,
this Obama
but
stuff, I
didn't hear
never
anything
heard
about that
about the
Really?
college and the
Oh
mom.
no, this is all people.
Then again, I was 8.
I never
so-
heard anything.
Well, we've got like 2 minutes. So, quiz question: what movie would you like to see? Or if you're coming, if you're not coming to the final session, do remember to send me everything so that you've got your A, etc. And thank you for taking the class, etc.
Good time.
There's
Yeah,
a
I
lot of
look for,
folks that
like-
aren't here but are actually here because they've been taking advantage of this and still sending me everything. So it's a bigger class than it looks.
Let's watch something semi-modern, just for entertainment's
How do you
sake.
go with that?
Slated 12.
Like, yeah, Interstellar,
I've seen
Gattaca,
that.
Blade
Yeah.
Runner,
Seven.
some great sci-fi.
7th
Oh, yeah.
of December. It's the 12th month.
I'll bring
7th
sodas. What do
day
people
of the
want?
12th.
I like Coca-Cola.
I'll just bring a thing of Coke.
By the way,
Thing of
recommend my
Mountain Dew.
courses because
All
we're
right.
now in a
Yay.
really competitive
I think
situation.
should be good. Instead of thinking
Thank
of Cody, I was
you.
like, okay, what about
Okay,
sodas?
well,
It's gonna be boring. This is gonna be fun.
And if you haven't sent enough words for some tests, please send more words. That's important
Are you gonna
because
be here next Tuesday?
I think I
remember I grade by how many words, so send me more words.
I've sent you my words.
Alright, I'm serious.
We'll see you next week, sir.
She's like, 'cause I'm not getting
Should
it.
we even bother making up the little quiz questions?
Yeah, exactly. If
could
it's
be
not
go
something
through
I
and
can steal
answer
around my
each
house
one.
without my
Oh yeah,
parents.
just do it.
You can send them all together in one big one.
Okay.
But so there is one grade for the quiz questions, and that's 25%, right?
Yeah.
So it depends how many you've already sent and everything.
Okay.
Because basically what I'll do at the end when I'm grading everything, that's the last grade I look at.
Because so often I just forgot. No, I was in class. I just
Oh yeah, well you
completely
should do
forgot
them
to even-
because if I go and look at your email to see how much of the quiz responses you sent and there's
Okay.
none,
So
then
I'll
I'm,
leave that up
then
to
I'm
you.
stuck. Then I'm stuck because
Alrighty.
that's one of the criteria, and
Alrighty.
I do use it. So
Okay.
so there's the percents. And it should-
25%. That's significant. So
Yeah, that's a C.
that's a C. Yeah.
All right. Term project, it's 3,000 words, so I realize it's a heavy writing course,
Yeah.
but that's, I think that's the main
It's
way
not
to
bad.
get.
It's not bad.
And I go by volume,
Yeah, I don't think it's unreasonable.
so it's not like I'll be upset that you're. I was absolutely hilarious. I got one term paper doing Francis Fukuyama, and the student wrote, his father was an economics, a professor at such and such, and his mother was the economics department of such and such university. The whole economics department.
The entire
and
one woman.
that's hilarious. But I mean, it's still, that's an A. She had 3,000 plus words. And so I'm not going to be nitpicky or go for grammar or any of that stuff. So relax. Just
Yeah,
enjoy
I
yourself.
don't think it's unreasonable, not at all. But anyway, I'm out of here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.